I just played Blood Money, a clicker horror game. Yeah, quite a strange concept, right? The idea was clearly to take those clicker games that I think everyone has played at this point and try to put a horror spin on it, which makes sense. We've seen clicker games explored in all kinds of different ways. Cookie Clicker is probably the most famous one because it took the idea of the clicker game and made a meta experience. There's like dating simulator clicker games. So why not a horror one? Well, let's dive into the experience and my thoughts on it. The story is simple. You have to get this operation, but it's $25,000. So, as you're trying to figure out how to make the money, you come across this person, Harvey Harvington, who will give you $1 every time you click on him. So, you're clicking away, and if you want the good ending, you'll just keep on clicking. Maybe you'll go as far as like the feather, or the needle, but you won't go further than that. Like you just keep clicking, get that 25k, and get that operation. Simple as that. Oh, I guess there was no horror after all. The thing about this game is that there's 3 endings. The good ending, which took me over an hour to get, is, like I said, one where you just pick all the harmless options and continue like that. But the whole point of the game is that, much like in other clicker games, you can buy upgrades. Now, of course, these get you more money per click. Instead of, each individual click getting you $1, if you upgrade to the feather, you get $2. If you upgrade to the needle, you get $4, and so on and so on. But every time you upgrade, what you're clicking Harvey with gets more and more severe. You end up with a hammer, with a knife, with fire. And as you go through, you're inflicting more and more punishments on Harvey, with the game clearly questioning how far you're willing to go just to get that money. Sure, you're making it easier, but you're doing it at the expense of Harvey himself, who is undoubtedly suffering. Now, if you stop partway through, you'll get like the neutral ending, where Harvey ends up living but sues you for, well, quite literally ruining his life. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the bad ending. See, if you go far enough, Harvey starts to really feel the pain. He loses an eye, he takes all this punishment getting burnt and stabbed, and eventually he ends up, ridiculing you, pointing out that you're only doing this because, well, he's just a game, isn't he? And mocking you for it, how you would never do something like this in real life, only to then try and fight back. This is where my one big criticism comes from, and I think it does make or break the game, and I feel like the writing of Harvey himself is a little inconsistent in my opinion. Harvey starts off obviously pretty nice, and then understandably starts to get anxious once you start showing those more violent tendencies with your escalation in what you're clicking on him with. This of course goes into full-on desperation. So far the incline is making sense. And then during that desperation, he's telling you about like his life, how he's got a wife and kids, and how like he needs to be able to go back to them, so you shouldn't hurt him too much. But if you keep going, suddenly his idea completely changes. Suddenly he's not desperately begging for his life, he's fully aware that he's a computer program, that he's just lines on a screen to you. And I feel like the game kind of lost me there, because if Harvey's fully aware that he's lines on a screen, how does he have a wife and kid? Surely if he knows he's lines on a screen, he would be aware that he doesn't have a wife and kids, that they're not real? I don't know, like, that kind of threw me off. And the part where you eventually fight him off when he does decide to fight back, I feel like it gets a little bit too wordy. Like, Harvey should have realised at this point that it's absolutely hopeless, yet instead of, like, maybe, like, some feeling of, like, despair or something, he just continues going on about how, I'm just lines on a screen to you, aren't I? You couldn't give less of a shit about me. And I'm thinking, Harvey, I just chopped your damn hand off. Why are you so blasé about this? You've screamed, and now you're just going back about how you're like lines of code. No, either you give a shit or you don't. You can't like flip-flop like this. Either that hand really hurts and you're scared for your life and your wife and kids, or your lines on a screen that are fully aware that you're just being toyed with because you don't actually exist. You can't have it both ways, my man. Anyway, once you get the final upgrade after this, the gun, Harvey makes one last plea, gives you all the money he has, maxing out your money total before you finally pull the trigger. this leads to the bad ending where you're like, the operation wasn't life-saving anyway. It might be nice to have, but hey, let's go to Vegas with all this money. Oh, man. And truthfully, like, the scariest moment of the game was, like, right at the end where, after I got the bad ending and the credits rolled, I got jump-scared by Dead Harvey with a "look what you've done" thing. And that was probably the best part of the game. Like, it genuinely did startle me, and served well to be like a, hey, look, you're a friggin' monster for what you did here. But I do wish that the writing of Harvey was a bit more consistent. Does Harvey care because he's got a wife and kids at home, or does he realize he's a computer program and that none of this is real and that's the reason why you're so blasé about it? That's kind of the problem, which makes me a little bit hesitant to recommend this. Though it is free, so I mean, you can go ahead and try it. The game, I ended up spending like just over 2 hours on it because I wanted to get all the endings. And I even spent time trying to experiment in the game. You know, see how far it goes if I just stop at the hammer, where I spill a little bit of blood, but, you know, I don't do any permanent harm, which was a kind of good ending. And I did want to see what would happen if I went straight from the feather to the gun, but I never did that experiment because it would have required, like, 30k, which I didn't which, you know, would have just triggered the good ending. Also, in terms of the game itself, the art and the voice acting are actually pretty good. I've got to give the person who voiced Harvey some prompts. As much as I may not be fully on board with the characterization, the voice actor is absolutely giving it his best in that. And the art looks really nice. Now, despite me harping on that one aspect of Blood Money, the game itself is free. You can donate money to the game's developer if you want, but you can absolutely download the game for nothing, and it's going to take 2 hours of your time, if that, depending on if you want to go for multiple endings or just the one. It's really hard to, like, make much of a fuss about it. So if you want to try it out for yourself, then absolutely feel free. It's available on itch.io, and I'll leave a link in the pinned comment. It's not a strong recommendation for me, but still, I can't complain about it too much, and I think it might be worth you giving a shot. Getting the main ending that's worth trying for is probably going to take you less than 15 minutes even.